observing negative spaces. When you're drawing, all you need to do is start with the biggest shapes first, then come back around and look at them in smaller chunks. With this picture of a cat, if we concentrate on the shapes of the negative spaces, we end up automatically drawing the cat without drawing the cat. It's like those optical illusions where you can only see one thing or another. You can't focus on both at the same time. And it applies not just to the overall shape, but to the interior shapes as well. When you start working on the face area, like the eyes and the ears, don't draw them. Draw the shapes around them. Anytime you're struggling with a drawing, it's probably because your dominant brain is trying to force a symbol in there. If you shift your attention to an adjacent space, it will help get you back into the artist's way of seeing. In this next exercise, we're going to use this photo of an old man in a diner. I've made a line illustration from it. You'll see all the things that your dominant side loves to name: the head, hair, ear, glasses, arm, watch, hand, shirt, and all the things on the table. For this exercise, we're going to trick your dominant side by turning the picture upside down. When you draw a picture upside down, all of a sudden those things disappear, and all you see are interesting shapes that your artist side loves to draw. And speaking of negative space, I remember the first time I read the Tao Te Ching. There was a verse that mentioned the empty space inside the cup is what allows it to hold water. My artist mind immediately equated that to the negative space around an object, also defining the object. The empty space inside the cup is as much a part of the concept of cup as the cup itself.
So this is my still life, and I will start with this negative space over here. So I'm not looking at the fork, I'm not looking at the necklace, and I'm not looking at the dip pen, but I'm looking at the white that I see in that space between those three subjects. Doing a contour drawing basically, and I'm measuring how large is that part on top of the fork and how large is that part in the lower fork, but still I'm not drawing the fork, I'm just really drawing the rest that is around the subjects. And my view is just a little bit different than here on camera, but I think you understand where I'm going with this. The negative spaces are what I am focusing on today. And once I have drawn all the negative spaces, I will have actually drawn all of the shapes of these subjects in the still life. And you can see how very slow I am doing this. I am really taking my time and trying to measure and find landmarks to see what goes where and what ends at the height of another shape or curve. And that way I work my way through this part of the drawing. And then I have already drawn so much, even though I have only focused on the white of the background. And of course it's not exactly accurate, but what drawing is. If I would have drawn each single shape one by one of that necklace and of the pen and of the fork, I would not have done this. I would just be at, I think, the second pebble of the necklace, you know. So this slows you down, but at the same time, it makes you a little bit faster in making decisions about your drawing and on seeing all the shapes, because you are actually not drawing the shapes, but you are drawing around them. I have moved on to the outside of the negative space, and because I have already that one side, it's a lot easier to create the rest of the shape. of the pebbles of the necklace, but still I'm not actually drawing the necklace itself and the inside shapes. I'm just drawing the outline that I see, and I'm really looking at the shape around the necklace. And here I'm struggling a bit because I'm like, what goes where? And I see that things are a little bit crooked, but I can't really change this anymore, so I'll just go with it and I'll see how it turns out once I add more details in the shapes themselves. So again, this is a really good chunk of negative space here on the left. And once I've done that, it's quite easy to draw the space around on the right hand side. And sure, some things are a little bit out of proportion, but still, it's not that bad. And I love seeing how things are starting to make sense just by looking at the space around and between all the shapes. Look at that. I think I'm ready to draw the smaller negative spaces right now. So there's all these really tiny bits and pieces here in that bit of chain in the necklace. So I'm trying to capture that. And then there's this whole bunch here. Let's see what I can find. I just need to look for the white background here. It's a bit of a puzzle to find all those white negative spaces. But I think I got them all now, so I will start and draw some of the details. So now I am focusing on the shapes in the still life. I'm not focusing anymore on the background, but I'm just really trying to look at the shapes bit by bit, trying not to be overwhelmed by all the small bits and pieces. Just bit by bit, I am going to see what I can fill in and how to make sense of it all. And the negative spaces really help me here, because now it's basically just finishing shapes rather than finding out what goes where, because I already did that. And then of course here with the dip pen, I created a little problem for myself because it's all crooked. I'm trying to sort of fix that, but I don't want to fiddle too much because then I would only focus on the mistake and emphasize on it. And now there's just one extra line. It's all good. Moving on. Drawing a bunched up necklace like this with all these wooden parts or pebbles or whatever you want to call them might be very overwhelming if you are trying to draw it shape by shape. But when you focus on the negative spaces first, you are really doing yourself a big favor because you are laying out the whole thing for yourself to fill in the shapes rather than finding out how to make sense of it all. I think I have everything that I need in line. The hard part is over. You basically create a coloring page for yourself this way. But I think it's really important not to be painting very much inside the lines. I like just sort of quickly adding the paint to the paper so that it brings a little bit of extra life to the drawing. Some liveliness, some playfulness. I love that. For the drop shadow, I mix a gray with brown and blue. You can use any kind of brown and any kind of blue, and if you add more brown, the gray becomes a little bit warmer, and if you add more blue, it creates a little bit of a cooler gray. So you can play with this as well and make it your own. Now that the first layer of color has dried, I am adding just another layer to indicate more shading and darker sides on the necklace, and that basically makes this drawing done.